Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The city of Newbridge seemed peaceful at first glance. Its clean streets, well-maintained parks, and modern buildings gave the impression of a safe place where everyone could live without fear. But beneath this tranquil exterior, tensions had been simmering for years. The city's expanding diversity was beginning to reveal cracks in institutions once considered beyond reproach. In the heart of this city, in the Newbridge Police Department, worked Monica Harris, a black woman in her 30s, respected for her intelligence, rigor, and loyalty. Over the past 10 years, she had risen through the ranks with merit, building a reputation as a competent and honest inspector. Her colleagues knew that she would stop at nothing to defend justice, but some, unable to bear her success, harbored jealousy and resentment toward her. Among them, Derek Collins, an arrogant young police officer, had always struggled to hide his contempt for Monica. His derogatory remarks and provocative behavior betrayed a latent racism, fueled by the idea that a black woman had no place in positions of responsibility. Derek thought his authority and status as the department's young gun would be enough to intimidate Monica, but he would soon discover that the strength of a resilient woman could turn the tide of even the most perilous situations. That morning, in the sunlight-filled lobby of the police station, the air seemed heavy with tension. Monica, focused on a sensitive case, had no idea that the day was about to take an unexpected turn, and that the looming confrontation would test not only her composure, but the very integrity of the department. Sunlight streamed through the large windows of Newbridge Police Station, illuminating the immaculately tidy offices and white-walled corridors. Monica Harris. She walked confidently, her badge pinned to her chest, her notebook tucked under her arm. She had just received a sensitive file involving an investigation into a complex fraud ring, and her mind was entirely focused on work. It was then that she saw Derek Collins, leaning against the wall near the entrance, arms crossed, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. His gaze followed her with an uneasy insistence. "Well, if she isn't the department's superstar," he said mockingly. "Always proving you're better than everyone else, huh?" Monica looked up from her notebook, her face impassive. "Derek, focus on your work. We have procedures to follow, and this is not the time for your pointless comments." But Derek wasn't about to leave it at that. "Oh, I understand, you want me to keep my mouth shut in front of the Grand Inspector. Do you really think your degrees and badge give you the right to look down your nose at me?" His tone hardened, and a palpable tension settled over the hall. Monica took a deep breath, aware of the curious looks from some of her colleagues. She didn't want to fuel an unnecessary conflict. "I'm not looking down on you, Derek. I'm just doing my job. And you'd better do yours." Derek's mocking laughter echoed through the hall. "Oh, you know what I really think of you, Monica. You don't belong here, and everyone knows it. But you think your status and your color will never get you arrested, do you?" This time, Monica felt her anger rise, but she controlled it. Her years of training and experience had taught her to remain calm in the face of provocation. "Derek, your prejudices only reveal your lack of professionalism. You are here to serve and protect, not to humiliate your colleagues." Derek took a step forward, his face red with frustration. "We'll see who humiliates who, trust me." At that moment, the tone in the lobby changed. Several colleagues stopped their conversations to observe the scene. Monica knew the situation could escalate, but she wasn't afraid. Her strength lay in her calm, her self-control, and her determination not to let Derek cross the line. This confrontation, which seemed innocuous at first glance, would become the starting point of a conflict that would reveal not only the latent racism in the department, but also the strength and dignity of a black woman determined never to be crushed. Monica's day had started off badly, and she could already feel the weight of Derek's hostility weighing on her. She was finishing filing some sensitive documents in her office when she heard a noise behind her. Derek was waiting for her in the hallway, his fists slightly clenched, a smirk on his face. "So, Detective Constable, you really think you can just ignore me and everything will be fine?" he spat. Monica stood up slowly, her gaze fixed on him. "Derek, I already asked you to remain professional. I don't want any unnecessary confrontation." But Derek, blinded by his hatred and arrogance, took another step and tried to grab her arm and push her against the wall. "You're going to learn your place, finally." Monica reacted immediately. She'd taken self-defense training for this kind of situation. With a precise movement, she dodged Derek's hold and used Derek's momentum against him, pushing him back firmly. The shock made Derek recoil, but he didn't give in. The hallway of the police station echoed with their footsteps and voices. Colleagues began to gather, some pulling out their phones to film the incident. Derek, furious, attempted another attack, but Monica remained calm, dodging skillfully and using effective defensive techniques to protect herself without seriously injuring him. "Stop," she shouted, her firm voice echoing through the hall. "What you're doing is illegal and will be reported." But Derek, confident in his power and impunity, persisted. He didn't know that Monica had not only the training, but also the moral strength and presence of mind to handle the situation. Every move she made was calculated, precise, and she kept a safe distance while blocking his attacks. Finally, seeing that Derek couldn't control her, Monica took a step back, staring him straight in the eye. "You're losing control, Derek. Stop or I'll call the higher-ups immediately." Derek, panting and humiliated in front of his colleagues, slowly backed away. The murmurs of the witnesses in the hall turned into a tense silence. Monica, her face calm but determined, never lowered her eyes. This moment was not only a demonstration of physical strength, but also of dignity. Derek had just learned that underestimating a capable and determined black woman could have immediate and visible consequences. From this moment on, the conflict would go beyond simple workplace tensions. The events that followed would expose Derek to justice and demonstrate that perseverance, calm, and courage could triumph even in the face of violence and racism. A few hours after the attack in the police station hallway, videos captured by colleagues began circulating discreetly within the department. The tension was palpable, everyone knew Derek had crossed the line, and that Monica had demonstrated exceptional composure. Within minutes, the images had gone viral on internal groups and even reached the town's social media channels. Shocked Newbridge residents reacted with outrage. "How can a police officer attack a colleague like this?" asked the comments. "Monica is an example of courage and dignity," added others. At the police station, the Captain Richard Myers was alerted immediately. A fair and experienced man, he had known Monica for several years and knew that she embodied integrity. He summoned Derek to his office without delay. "Derek, what did I just see?" Myers asked, his voice serious, the videos projected on the screen behind him. Derek, pale and nervous, stammered. That wasn't. I mean." But Myers left no room for error. "No excuses. You just crossed the line, and you know it. We will launch an internal investigation immediately. You are suspended until further notice." Meanwhile, Monica, although shocked by the attack, continued to work professionally. She knew that her calm was her best weapon. Colleagues who had filmed the scene came to her to offer their support. Many told her they had never seen someone remain so composed in such a violent situation. In the city, the video quickly became a major story. Local media picked up on the incident, and the story sparked community reaction, virtual demonstrations of support for Monica, discussions about racism in the department, and calls for accountability from officials. Derek, who had thought himself untouchable, was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. His arrogance and contempt for Monica had backfired. Every comment, every share of the video reinforced the idea that justice and dignity could triumph over violence and hatred. This media turning point would mark the beginning of a series of irreversible consequences for Derek, and demonstrate that Monica's truth and moral strength could inspire an entire city. The captain's office. Richard Myers was plunged into a heavy silence. The walls, usually filled with diplomas and photos of departmental achievements, seemed to absorb all the tension today. Derek Collins sat on a stiff chair, staring at the floor, unable to meet his superior's gaze. "Derek, you know why you're here," Myers began, his voice firm but controlled. "An internal investigation has been initiated. You are suspended and are not to approach Monica or interfere with her work under any circumstances while this investigation is ongoing. Derek, trying to downplay the situation, stammered, "It was just an altercation, she provoked me." Myers raised an eyebrow, impassive. "The videos clearly show who the attacker is. And believe me, any attempt at justification will be examined with the utmost rigor." Meanwhile, Monica was summoned to another room to give her version of events. She remained calm, detailing each detail precisely, without showing any excessive emotion. She described Derek's actions, his previous provocations, and how she had to defend herself. The investigators took meticulous notes, impressed by her clarity and composure. As the investigation progressed, it emerged that Derek already had a troubling past. Several complaints of racist behavior toward colleagues and citizens had been recorded, but never followed by severe sanctions. This internal file revealed that his arrogance and sense of impunity were deeply rooted. Colleagues, informed of the details of the investigation, began to support Monica publicly and discreetly. Some recounted how Derek had already demonstrated his disregard for rules and respect for others, and all emphasized Monica's patience and professionalism in the face of these repeated provocations. Captain Myers, determined to act with integrity, also summoned Monica to update her on the progress of the investigation. "We will ensure justice is served," he told her. "Your courage and professionalism will be recognized." Monica, though aware of the media and internal attention, remained focused on her role. She knew that the real battle lay not only in punishing Derek, but in demonstrating that justice could triumph in the face of racism and violence, even within an institution that sometimes seemed blind to its own failings. The walls of Newbridge Police Station seemed to vibrate with palpable tension. Derek Collins, already under pressure after his assault, was about to discover that his past was catching up with him in the most dramatic way. During an official meeting with the Captain Richard Myers and the internal investigation team, documents were presented, previous complaints, reports from citizens and colleagues, as well as video testimonies of repeated racist behavior. Derek's eyes widened as he recognized each incident. This can't be happening," he stammered, but his voice betrayed fear. The investigators presented the facts one by one. Humiliating and racist remarks towards colleagues blacks or women in the department. The intimidation of a young officer during a training, which had left written traces. Citizens complain about aggressive intervention unjustified during a patrol. Monica, present to answer questions from the internal team, calmly observed Derek. She knew this confrontation would reveal the truth about his behavior. Each document presented reinforced the evidence. Derek wasn't just arrogant, he was dangerous and unpredictable. Captain Myers did not hide his outrage. "Derek, your past actions and recent behavior demonstrate that you have repeatedly abused your authority. This is not just a personal issue, it is a systemic problem that jeopardizes the trust of the public and our colleagues." Derek felt panic rising. The excuses he prepared suddenly seemed ridiculous in the face of the irrefutable evidence. His colleagues, who had previously hesitated to openly oppose him, began to share their experiences. The wall of support for Monica was strengthening, and Derek found himself more isolated than ever before. This public and internal revelation marked a turning point. Derek understood there would be no escape. His reputation was ruined, and his future in the department was now compromised. Monica, for her part, confirmed that justice could prevail, not through revenge, but through truth and integrity. From that moment on, Derek's downfall seemed inevitable. He had underestimated Monica, underestimated the solidarity of his colleagues, and underestimated the power of the system when applied correctly. The entire city would soon learn that racism and arrogance had irreversible consequences. Despite the overwhelming evidence and the viral nature of the incident, Derek Collins refused to accept reality. Convinced he could still salvage his reputation, he began maneuvering in the shadows. He contacted certain colleagues, trying to persuade them to defend him or minimize his actions. "Monica's exaggerating, you know how she is, she's always looking to put herself forward," he said quietly, hoping to sow seeds of doubt. But he had underestimated something crucial: the overwhelming support Monica enjoyed, both from her colleagues and from higher-ups. the officers who had witnessed her provocations and racist behavior refused to be manipulated. Instead, they approached Monica to offer their support, some even offering to testify officially at the disciplinary hearing. Monica, aware of Derek's maneuvers, remained perfectly calm. She knew that giving in to anger or verbally retaliating would only fuel the chaos. Instead, she continued to document every action, every attempt at manipulation, methodically and calmly. Every message, every implied threat from Derek became further evidence of his dishonesty. The Captain Richard Myers, observing the situation, made a strategic decision. He summoned Derek to a preliminary hearing, confronting him with his contradictions and his past actions. Derek, trapped, tried to defend his behavior, but the evidence was overwhelming and his colleagues testified without hesitation. It was at that precise moment that Derek realized the odds were stacked against him. His arrogance, hatred, and racism could no longer be hidden or excused. Monica, with her mastery, had transformed every attack, every threat, into a lever for truth and justice. The turning point was clear. Derek was no longer the one doing the bullying, but the one who had to answer for his actions. Monica, on the other hand, emerged stronger from the ordeal, not only for having survived the attack, but for having demonstrated that courage and dignity could reverse power dynamics and expose the truth, even in a hostile environment. The big day of the disciplinary hearing had arrived. The room was filled with police officers, superiors, and witnesses. The atmosphere was charged with tension. Everyone knew that this hearing would decide Derek Collins's fate. Derek walked in, his face tense, trying to hide his nervousness behind a mask of arrogance. He knew the videos and witness statements weren't working in his favor, but he still hoped to sow seeds of doubt. The Captain Richard Myers spoke first. "Derek, you have been accused of unacceptable behavior and assault against a colleague. We have reviewed the evidence, the videos, the witness statements, and your disciplinary history. You have the floor to defend yourself." Derek stood up, searching for words. I think there was a misunderstanding. She provoked me. I didn't mean to." At that moment, Monica was invited to speak. Calm and composed, she addressed the assembly. "There is no misunderstanding. Derek physically attacked me in the hallway, in front of several witnesses, and attempted to manipulate me through fear and intimidation. This is not the first time his behavior has been problematic. These actions endanger not only the morale of the department, but also the public's trust in the police." She gestured toward the screens where the videos of the assault and the evidence piled up were being projected. Derek's every move, every reaction, was visible for all to see. Murmurs rippled through the room, and Derek felt the crushing weight of the truth crash down on him. Several colleagues, who had previously remained silent, confirmed the facts. Testimonies poured in, each reinforcing Monica's version of events. Derek, unable to find an excuse, degraded himself under the firm gaze of his peers and superiors. Captain Myers concluded, "Derek Collins, your actions are unacceptable and constitute a serious violation of our principles. You are dismissed, and further action may be considered. This department does not tolerate racism, aggression, or abuse of power." Derek's face froze. His pride and arrogance had been publicly shattered. He had underestimated Monica, the solidarity of his colleagues, and the strength of the system when applied correctly. Monica, for her part, remained impassive but smiling inwardly. Her dignity and self-control had triumphed. She had just shown that courage, perseverance, and truth could reverse even the most oppressive situations. This final confrontation marked not only Derek's downfall, but also a black woman's victory over racism and violence within her own department. After the disciplinary hearing, Derek Collins left Newbridge Police Station with his head bowed, aware that his career had collapsed. The whispers and stares of colleagues, once intimidated by his arrogance, followed him at every step. The self-assured man, who had thought his power and status would protect him, now found himself alone, exposed, and humiliated. News of his dismissal spread quickly throughout the city. Local media picked up the story, highlighting the attack on Monica Harris, her admirable defense, and the extent of the institutional racism Derek had embodied. His professional networks began to sever ties, and he received calls from outraged citizens who had been following the story. His former allies within the department, some of whom had turned a blind eye to his behavior out of fear or convenience, now distanced themselves. Derek had lost not only his position, but also his network and influence. Every message, every comment on social media was a reminder of the extent of his fall. Monica, for her part, continued her work with the same rigor and determination. She received messages of support from colleagues, superiors, and even civilians recognizing her courage. She had become a symbol of justice and dignity, proving that perseverance and professionalism could overcome hatred and violence. Derek, locked in his frustration and regret, realized his police career was over. His apologies, belated and clumsy, no longer found ears to listen. His reputation was irreparably tarnished, and any attempt to reverse his actions now seemed ridiculous. Derek's fall wasn't just personal, it served as an example for the entire department and the entire city. It showed that racism, arrogance, and the abuse of power always come to light, and that those who dare to attack justice and the dignity of others must pay the price. For Monica, this victory was not an end, but a reminder that vigilance and determination are essential to protect integrity and justice in a world where some continue to underestimate the strength of those they seek to oppress. A few weeks after Derek Collins' fall, the Newbridge Police Department held an official ceremony to recognize the courage and professionalism of Monica Harris. The corridors of the police station were decorated with banners and photos retracing his exemplary career. Colleagues, superiors, and even members of the community were present. The Captain Richard Myers spoke, his eyes filled with pride. "Monica, you have demonstrated exemplary composure and integrity in the face of unacceptable behavior. Your perseverance and dignity have not only protected your honor, but have also inspired the entire department and our community." Loud applause echoed through the room. Monica, usually quiet, felt a comforting warmth fill her. She knew her fight wasn't limited to this case, it sent a clear message against racism and bullying. Newbridge residents, invited to testify, spoke out. They recounted how Monica's story had inspired them, strengthening their faith in the justice system and the possibility of positive change within institutions. Social media and local media continued to share her example, making her a symbol of courage and resilience. Monica was also praised for her ability to remain calm and professional despite pressure, humiliation, and violence. Her composure transformed a personal attack into an act of moral strength, showing that dignity can triumph over hatred. At the end of the ceremony, Monica addressed the gathering, "We all have a responsibility to stand up for justice, equality, and dignity. This experience has taught me that even in the face of fear and injustice, our inner strength and determination can make a difference. Let us continue to support those who are vulnerable and act with integrity." The applause resumed, this time even louder and more sincere. Monica had just shown that recognition does not come only from hierarchy or institutions, but from the ability to inspire respect and trust through one's actions. That day, Monica Harris became not only an example to her fellow police officers, but also to the entire town of Newbridge, a living symbol that justice and dignity can triumph in the face of injustice, and that moral courage is an invincible force. A few months after the Derek Collins affair, the city of Newbridge seemed more aware of the issues surrounding racism and integrity within its institutions. Residents, the media, and even the police department understood a fundamental truth: justice and dignity cannot be compromised without consequences. Monica Harris continued her work with the same rigor and determination. Every investigation she conducted, every decision she made, reflected not only her professionalism, but also the experience she had gone through. She knew that her example had already inspired many colleagues to adopt a more respectful and equitable behavior. The department had introduced new training and policies to combat racism and abuse of power. Young recruits were now taught, from the very beginning, the importance of integrity and respect for all, regardless of race or gender. Monica, often invited to speak at conferences and community meetings, tirelessly repeated the same message: strength lies not only in the authority one holds, but in how one uses it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act with integrity in spite of it. For Derek Collins, the lesson had been cruel but irreversible. His career destroyed, his name associated with injustice and arrogance, he had become a living example of what pride and racism can lead to. His fall showed that those who believe they can crush others without consequences are gravely mistaken. Monica's story became a symbol of resilience and justice. She showed that, in the face of injustice, self-control, determination, and truth are powerful weapons. Her victory was not just about standing up for herself, but about transforming an ordeal into a lesson for an entire community. Newbridge had learned something invaluable: dignity and courage always triumph, and those who dare to violate these principles must face the consequences. Monica, through her strength and integrity, had left a lasting mark, a legacy of justice and hope for all who seek to do what is right, even against all odds.